Good evening. We're picking up where we left off last time. I just beat Bloodless, and now I can steal blood. And the main use for that I know of is to go here, where there's that gigantic pool of blood.
Hi, Miriam. What are we transmuting this time?
Though I've been thinking that maybe I should, like, double-check all of, like, the upgrades and such. See what, like, stuff I could get. Strike your surroundings with a merciless barrage of lightning. I can make that because I have Tepsosius. Oh, there's Regenerate. I've been wanting that. And High Jump. I need a bovine plume for that. Still haven't encountered those, I'm pretty sure. I do want Regenerate, though. Demon Tail, I'm not sure where that's from. Fairy Wing, I'm pretty sure it comes from the things in the place.
Pace yourself.
So I guess once I find a Demon Tail, I have more reason to go back and get things. Though they might actually come from, lilies, I think they're called. The women in the bunny outfits. I'm not sure. This game does have a bestiary, I'm pretty sure. I don't know if it'll give me drop rates. Okay, she gives Lily Tail, not Demon Tail. Granted, going by that, presumably Demon would drop Demon Tail? Nope, so Mr. Fang, so Mr. Hurt. I will keep an eye out. Because I would really like passive HP regeneration. Like, I don't super need it, but it would be very nice. Anyway, Miriam hasn't had anything to drink since she started this whole thing, so no. And now I can come down here. That whole thing was one of the moments that I remembered the most keenly from my first playthrough. Giant fountain filled with blood and you just kind of drink the whole thing. Toad whipping. Summon Water Leaper. The cap on this umbrella being somewhat wide is throwing me off a little bit as to where its hitbox is. Oh, well there's the demon tail that I was after. Well, now I just need to find a warp thing, I suppose. A way down here that was like convenient to get to would also be nice, because I think the closest warp thing is like here. But it's nice, because it's like now I can now I can start thinking about those other things. I presume I'm also getting close to the point where I can start navigating underwater. Which would be the other thing that would like really help me in that other area. Also, I know it's not unique to this game, but I do think it's really cool how, like, every enemy has, like, a skill that you can get from it. That looks like it's probably a restroom. Penetrate. Charge to the enemies with your spear at the ready. Usually restrooms have, bookcases in front of them, I've noticed. And look at it, that guy doesn't have a tail that looks like the icon. It's ever so slightly misleading. Okay. No nearby convenient, warp thing. Stunning thunder seems to be the meta for people. Nice. I didn't look it up, I just found this chart and I was like, oh, this works really well. Good. Resist petrification. Seems like it's gonna pay off if I put it on. Detect his eye. Makes secret walls visible to the eye. That's really good. I'm actually gonna farm those. I've not been doing as much, like, farming. I'm actually gonna farm this one. Can I augment my luck? Is that a thing? Probably, but I don't have the shard for it. This might take a minute. I can't remember if it's rank or grade that if I max it out I get to use it passively. I should probably double check that. Because I would really like to be able to passively see, like, invisible walls. Or I guess there would be non-visible walls. Breakable walls. I think I might revisit that later when I'm, like, more actively hunting for things. But it's good to keep in mind that that's, like, an option. Available walls are up on a gaze until 100% is an achievement. I've never really concerned myself with achievements like that. I would do it for fun. Another one of those, thank you very much. Bite fish. I don't really need the healing, but I'll take it. Or rather, it might be more efficient to have waited for when the healing would have been useful. But it's also useful right now, and it gives me a permanent bonus, because it was the first time I had some. I have a quest to kill 8 of those things. Aqua Stream allows you to swim by launching water in the designated direction, and P is not consumed underwater. Oh. That's my underwater traversal thing. Aqua, thank you for the hydration. And congratulations on being first. So what I'm probably gonna do then... And off you go. Oh, have a wonderful night. What I'll probably do is I'll put that on a shortcut, because I think I'm going to want that. It's not the world's most elegant underwater movement, but it is underwater movement. It counts for something. Okay, I can't open that chest while moving like this. So there must be like a more controllable way to control myself underwater. Water horse hoof. I am going in the direction of the place that I was wanting to get back to eventually, so that's nice. Oh, hey. Speaking of... Let's just go to a safe room. Detective's eye is nice because I don't have to hit every wall. I just get near it. And then we head back. With the ability to traverse underwater, I can also I think do stuff here. I think this was based off of having water. I might be misremembering. There was stuff down here that I couldn't do without water. And there was this stuff here under the entry hall that I couldn't do without the ability to traverse water. All in all, my toolkit is looking rather complete these days. Like, it's not entirely complete, but it's definitely filling out. I kinda wanna go this way, because I do want to get back here for fairy wings. Well, we'll see how much trouble I have with the bosses. Once I learned Bloodless's patterns, she really wasn't that bad, I think. I like how it just sort of pops out of the ground when I kill it. I was like, don't mind me, I'm out of your way. Oh, hello there. Detective's eye for the win. Alright, let's see what's this way. This looks familiar. Yeah, this is the same mechanism that was here. I was like, wait, was I here and then, like, lost the progress or something? But I'm pretty sure that this is a separate one entirely. I think. It might actually be the same one. Mahogany Rose Ring. Increases the amount of magic restored by mana roses. No stats though, but... I've been using a lot of those, so that might actually be worth it. Okay, so it raises it from about 20 to about 30. Which isn't bad, I suppose. It does mean that 2 of them, rather than 3 of them, is a Tepsosius, so... I think it's probably worth it, especially since I haven't really been using the restorative boosting properties of the Unicorn Ring. Actually, I just had another thought. The rank 9 thing on Detective's Eye. I would have had applies to, like, mana roses and such. Because if so, then that dramatically raises the value of actually farming it. Also, thank you for the head pats, I appreciate them. Okay, we're getting back over here, which is good. Well, I do kind of intend to grind that one up, so I suppose I'll find out. Even a little bit of, like, sucking in items, I've noticed, in games, is really, really strong. Congratulations on the watch streak, by the way. And it would have, like, a... what's the word? It would have, like, a magnifying effect on all other farming that I did, because I wouldn't have to put as much work into farming. Or going out of my way to grab things that dropped. I like how I'm trying to talk myself into doing something that I already wanted to do. Okay, so other side of that is where the fairies are. Is there going to be a war portrait thing around here, though? That's what I'd like to know. Because I don't think I'm farming 100%, but I think I might try to farm some things. Just because it is kind of like the sort of game where you do occasionally want to farm things. As mentioned before, I tend to get a little bit self-conscious when it comes to, like, grinding things on stream. Like, oh no, I don't wanna bore people. That kind of mentality. But I have been assured that people are here for me, so... Yeah, grinding off stream and voice chat in the Discord server is also an option. But it's like, I want this stuff now. Okay, I think it was... What was it? I think it was 3 fairy wings that I needed. One for regen, one for upgrading my double jump to have an iframe. EX shovel armor. Oh my goodness, it turns me into a shovel knight. Oh, it actually, like, changes my movement quite substantially. That's cool, though. I like that. Yeah, different chests underwater. So I'm clearly still missing some underwater traversal stuff. The Shovel Knight is more mobile than Miriam. I mean, to be fair, he's been, like, training to move around in that armor. It's a popular misconception that, like, armor slows you down. Like, it actually really profoundly does not. As long as it's, like, fitted to you. Like, people who actually wear armor, there are videos of them, like, doing cartwheels and such. The biggest risk you run when wearing armor is, losing range of motion. More so than, like, it being too heavy for you to move in general. Not to say that it doesn't have weight, but rather that it just, is not as encumbering as video games would have you believe. It's usually just made encumbering as like a balancing feature. Voice changer. This thing is both very cute and gives me a bunch of extra luck. I didn't even realize I had that. Voice changer. Distorts the wearer's voice. No thank you. There will be no VT Remirium. I think the fairies that I'm after are here. Either that or I have profoundly forgotten where they are. They're either here or they're here. I think they might actually be here. I think I might have profoundly forgotten where they were. This is fine. Not gonna lie, I've kind of forgotten what I was trying to accomplish. Yep, I'll figure it out eventually. Restart.
Have you... Here's what I've turned up. Good.
Speed mount.
Got any... Here's what I've turned up. Good.
What does speed belt do? Compels players to run, increases movement speed. 1, 2, 3. Oh, 3.5 seconds to get. Call it 3.5 seconds to get across. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's a minor speed boost.
It's good to... What are we transmuting this time?
Detective's Eye requires Toad's eyes to augment.
I'll go with this. I'll go with this.
I think it's grade 9
I'll
that
go
makes
with
them, that makes it so you can have them be passive.
I'll go with this.
Sinister Eye, which drops those?
I'll go with this. I'll go with this.
Double Japanese fairy wings. I was about to be like, can I search my item? Poison toads and presumably demon eyes are gonna be the last ones. Poison toad. Can I have it tell me where they are? Poison toad. Also, I presume that the shard icon on the side of them means that I got their shard. In which case, I don't have the shard from these guys. Better they just don't drop one. Okay, these ones say question mark and not null, so I guess the first ones just don't drop one. I'm learning how to read the... I'm learning how to read the manual. I'm becoming too powerful. Does say where they spawn, so that's good. Poison toad. Poison toad. Towers of Trained Dragons, Underground Sorcery Lab, Forbidden Underground Waterway. Checking the wiki feels a little bit like cheating, but I suppose it is an option. I do definitely prefer it when it's like available in-game. It's like, okay, we're allowed to have this this information. It said fairy. These things drop Vespin wings. Pretty sure I've killed fairies. So they should show up here. Those are bosses. I also like how it tells me if they have a drop that I just haven't encountered yet. I appreciate that, actually. Oh, here we are, sheet. Underground Sorcery Lab. It has to be specifically those ones, is the thing. Underground Sorcery Lab is, I believe, over here. Wait, minimap editor. Oh, interesting. Oh, and I can put pins on things. Interesting. Okay, pretty sure Underground Sorcery Lab was over here. I do appreciate that this game kind of like gives you all the tools you can ask for. No, Underground Sorcery Lab's over here, what the heck? Alright. Have I just been not farming something that's been right next to a warp point this entire time? Oh my goodness. I might be a little oh my goodness. I thought that they were like over here and like super far away from anything. I feel a little bit dumb now. I feel a little bit dumb now. Mimic gives money as power. Raises stats proportionate to wealth. Oh, I'm pretty sure it was 3 fairy wings I was after. That's a little embarrassing. This is where I thought, what's his face? The guy that gave me Reflector Ray. Is that a secret in the floor? Oh, was there something in the floor? Oh, so it is. Nice catch, I straight up did not notice that. Thank you very much. Skull necklace. Amplifies the power of magic shards at increased magic cost, and also gives me some level of dark resistance by the looks of it. Yeah, that is more than a little embarrassing. Alright, fairy wings. I've already gotten one. I think I've mentioned before, but I also really appreciate in this game how enemies just instantly respawn. Fairy Wing and Stinger. Stinger looks like it's a weapon, actually. Yes, it is. Though it's probably lower tier than my umbrella. It does do poison. I want to pet the dog. Unfortunately, it bites. I also appreciate that they put the mana flower lamp thing right here. That's benevolent design right there. Bespin Stinger. I just need one more set of wings, I think. Forgot to farm MP. Silly me. Oh, Graving. Awesome. Alright, back to what's-his-face. I shall have him make me things. You there,
It's
make me
good to...
things,
What are we
please.
transmuting this time?
I'll go
Double
with
jump.
this.
Invincibility at moment of second jump.
I'll go with this. I'll go with this. I'll go with this. I'll go with this. I'll go with this.
Right, bovine plumes to max it out. I need eyes for that. I feel like there was something over here that I wanted to do that I forgot about. Maybe it was crafting. Yeah, regenerate. I wanted to regenerate.
I'll go with this.
Thank you for the head pats. I appreciate them. So more regenerate shards is faster recovery. And because this is a crafted shard, I have to craft more, so technically I should go farm all of those. I think I'll save that for like a farming session on Discord. I think that's like the thing to do. And wasn't there also like a...
Stop back.
I feel like there was like one other thing that I wanted to do, but I forget. Oh well. I see that Miriam's like entire body flashes white there for a second. So that's an iframe on my double jump, that's cool. I feel like it might actually start bothering me that she's flickering me like that. Oh well. Pretty sure I can't go back. It does amuse me very slightly that, like, attacking and moving are, like, mutually exclusive. Like, for the novelty of having to move around like this. Like, I'll appreciate it while it's here, but I won't miss it when it's gone, is the way that I'll, phrase it. Oh, I can't use Reflector Ray underwater. Okay, I guess I need, like, more proper water traversal before I can go this way. Amphibian speed increases underwater movement speed. I for some reason lost the ability to use the swim shard. Or the aqua jet shard, rather. This is fine. Aquatic fillet. Slimy leather. You can't open that. You think you saw a chest at the bottom? You did. I just can't open chests underwater, while I'm moving like this. So I guess I gotta go this way. You know, I think I looked at, what it takes to make regenerate, but not at what it takes to upgrade regenerate. So I should probably do that, too. Poison toads are the ones I need to kill for Sinister Eyes. These are water leapers, not poison toads. More fried fish, lovely. Detective's Eye is definitely the one that I most want to be passive. In terms of practicality, I guess Regenerate's probably number one, but like in terms of like the benefits offered when just running through the castle, it's gotta be Detective's Eye. Simply because I will want to be like running through the entire castle, seeing everything. And if I don't make it passive, then I have to sacrifice an actual like utility passive, which I'd rather not do. Okay, so I can't go here unless I can walk around underwater normally. I think there's like stuff over here that I never got around to doing, because I couldn't go underwater at the time, so that's probably where I have to go next. Don't think I can do anything up there with my current stuff. Yeah, I think I want to go this way. And like the more things that I find myself wanting, the more that I do think I should just like take some time and farm at some point. Ooh, 100 gold, we take those. That's a waystone. Or like half a potion, I think. You know, it just now clicked in my head that, the sconces are dropping money because I have full mana. I'm just like, oh, that's convenient. It's like it's out of your control there, yo. You can decide what they drop. So to do a no magic run, that was my first run through, basically. I was like, wow, why are all these shards so weak? I simply had not upgraded them at all. I basically went through the entire team with just like utility and mobility shards. At the very end, I was like, oh. A thought has crossed my mind, which is that I should probably turn Miriam's dress red so that it matches this weapon. Like, I don't have to, but now that I've had that thought, it'll bother me if I don't. Honestly, it'd be nice if I had more options for like changing Miriam's appearance in general. But alas, glamour is not this game's end game, regrettably. Skilla. That sounded like a baby being strangled. That sounded like a baby not being strangled. Okay, the clamshell thingy resists slash, and once again, I've lost the ability to swim. There we go. Must be some kind of bug with the "you got a new shard for the first time" animation. My word, that is a lot of damage. Let's try not hitting another one of those. We're gonna take a 5-minute break here. Please use this time to refill your beverage, go to the bathroom. Anything that would take you about 5 minutes. I will see you shortly. return. And about 5 minutes of letting regen run during the break has given me like 80 more health. Not exactly a quantity to write home about. But I suppose it has blocked the game over, so it's something. I'll just get out of here. Oh dear. The sincere fear that I felt in that moment. It is actually twice now that regen has come in clutch. I should probably heal myself. Can't get in there without the ability to move around. I just scratched my nose. Put my hand back on the controller, accidentally tapped Sociust's hidden desert. It doesn't seem too hidden to me, I just found it. Those are poison toads who drop the eyes that I need to upgrade my detective's eye. They also just drop poison, which feels somewhat on the nose. Lethargy fires a beam that slows enemy movement. His Wraith. Unleash Holy Rays. That sounds like fun. I like Holy Rays. Oh, it's a red shard. His Wraith. Tis Wraith. Whenever I see the word ectoplasm, I think about that one woman from, I want to say, the Mages Guild in Oblivion, who, as like one of her fetch quests, needed ectoplasm. It might have been the Fighters Guild, actually. I just picked up something I wanted to check out, but then I forgot what it was. I don't think it was a shard. Accessory? No. Couldn't have been. Weapon? No. Maybe it was a shard? My memory is not the strongest in the world. Uh-oh. Ow, my bones! Oh, it was the flame whip. Unfortunately, I died. And if memory serves, it's been a while since I saved. Yeah, oh well. It'd be nice if there was a shard that made save rooms show up on the map, so I could like beeline to them. There probably is, honestly. Oh well. Anyway, I I know where I'm going now, so I can just kinda skip all the exploring bits. I'll get back to where I was relatively quickly. Borneus Fillet. I'll... Oh, there we go. I guess swinging my weapon also works. Ow. The greatest risk to my own safety, my own impatience. Truly. I also like how I made like all this stink out of like getting iframes on my double jump, and I don't think I've used it once for that purpose. Oh well, it is what it is. I call shenanigans. That was well below the line of my foot. Oh well. I remember coming through here. And we're back to the desert already. Just like that. I found it kind of funny that there's like a massive flooded section right next to a underground desert. It's like I feel like we could solve both areas' problems at the same time. Ooh, bone dragon. Living fossil. Oh, and I fell through. I will happily take the holy race back. I'm a bit of a sucker for like unholy and unholy type attacks and energies in games, especially if you use both at once. It's very tuney. It appeals to me. Like, behold the might of the Force in balance, and you've got like lightning in one hand and like to whatever cool thing light side users get in the other. Really, villains do always just seem to get the best toys. Blade whip. I haven't been using whips, but like... I am appreciating the extra, range on it. It was a bit slower than I'm used to. Oh, crystal. Okay, so something I am noticing that's like a bit of a downside perhaps is that the follow-up attacks from like the fire are stopping enemies from being knocked back. So like enemies that otherwise might have been like pushed safely away from me are not going as far. Alright, bud. A spear that produces flames capable of leveling whole cities. Alright. Lots of things dropping weapons here. I don't see able to angle this spear downwards though. Or up for that matter. Elevator there. Surely there's a safe room here. Yes, awesome. Warp things usually have a safe room nearby on the map. Ooh, chest. Give. Mithridate and crystal. Not allowed in there. That's the same kind of magical circle that the alchemists use.
Oh, come
Hey,
to
the
see me,
alchemist.
have you? Oh, Miriam, what are you doing here?
I ought to ask you the same.
I commanded you to leave this place.
Yeah, and I said nuh-uh.
I cannot. I gave Jeeble my word, and I intend to keep it.
Very well. This sigil was not meant for you, but we are far enough from the castle that it can contain you here. Goodbye, Miriam.
Oh, he's gonna try and steal me away? That's not okay. That was a lot of damage. Worse, that's kind of annoying. Good sword, keep harassing him. Ow. I kind of want to see how much, Okay, 3,000. Not like I need, the Rose Wing in a boss fight anyway. His attacks really hurt. Rude.
Start with this.
I'm probably not gonna win this attempt, but realistically, it's feeling more like catching up to him is just the hardest part. I thought I could throw the needle there.
I know your power better than you.
Little does he know that I'm very powerful. Let's see. Optimizer, if I'm going to be using a relatively slow weapon, seems like a good idea. I don't think I have any way to, like, reflect projectiles, because that would be, like, the funniest way to handle his attacks. Whenever a boss is like, or even just like a really annoying enemy is like being really annoying, my first question is always just like, can I use their stuff against them? Sometimes you can, and it's really funny. Rude. Oh, thank you for the rotation. Might have just iframed through those. Ow. Rude. Also rude. Okay, I was way more aggressive that time and I tore through his health a lot faster. I did die in the process. This is feeling like another one of those fights where I just have to be a little bit patient. Which, granted, not my strong suit. My mind also goes to, lethargy. I don't know if I can catch him, but if I can keep him from running, that could be really
See
fun.
me, have you? Stand down.
Okay, he's just gonna resist it. Unfortunate. Right, I think I'm getting the hang of him. Ow, famous last words. But I do think I'm getting the hang of him. Ow. Okay, so I guess he's just gonna spam those so I'm too far away from them. So, funnily enough, the thing that I was complaining about earlier, where like the fire was like stopping knockback, it's actually kind of paying off extra here, because like, it gives him an extra bit of hit stun where he's not running away from me, while I can be like advancing towards him. The hitbox on the icy thing is a little bit funky. I've also just remembered that I can backstep. Rude. I'm cursed and poisoned. I don't think I have any Panacea. Or a way to deal with curse in general. Regrettable. I can at least get rid of the poison.
Stand down.
High frames for the win. Sub 2k. Ow. Oh, this was a slow time. I'm not sure how on board I am with the containers for his things also inflicting as much damage as their contents. So, progress is progress.
Has betrayed you.
And the upgrades on the double jump I'm definitely feeling on the ice drop attack. No, I wonder if I could, like, poison him. I wonder how poison actually works. Like, is it until death? Could I poison him and then, like, just let him play his turtle game? I genuinely don't know. I can't imagine it's permanent. But I kind of want to find out. And then right when I get the proc on the first stab,
The old are not to be confused with the weak.
right when I get the proc on the first attempt, I then die so I can't see how it plays out. Yeah, I also never really used any status effects, so I'm kind of curious if this is going to be like his Achilles heel. Because, like, if he can be, like, being whittled down while he's, like, running around and, like, doing things, then I don't really care if he's running around and doing things. Like, it turns his playstyle into a liability rather than an advantage. Alright. Seems to do 40 damage per tick. Will he stay poisoned?
Start with this. Stand down.
He won't stay poisoned, but it did do a lot of damage. He also doesn't have contact damage, which I appreciate.
Stand down. Start with this.
I'm not really using my MP for attacking, so... Whoops. I did not see the fire. My eyes were upwards, not downwards.
Has betrayed you.
Yeah, poisoning him does feel like it's being really effective. So I'm gonna keep doing it. Like, maybe it's all in my head, but I kind of feel like it is working. And it means that I don't have to constantly be, like, running into his stuff as much. Dude himself gave me the idea, so... I was like, wow, this poison lasts a really long time. Rude. Also rude. Rude. My face didn't dump me there. And I'm dead.
Game over.
Okay, so probably a combination is... Probably a combination is like the thing to do here. So what I'm thinking is... I'll put the stinger here, and then I'll put the whip that I've been using here. And I'll reapply poison whenever the poison drops off of him. And aside from that, I'll just go back to, hitting him. Which by itself is, like, more tactical than I've been for any other boss, but I mean... It's not a bad thing. I haven't committed to being a berserker or anything. I just usually play like one. I think I can craft curse cures. But honestly, curing the curse isn't a big deal. Like, the most annoying part of the curse is that it drops my health down to half. Like, once I'm there, it's not really that big of a deal. Like, curse doesn't have ongoing penalties, really, beyond the initial one.
I know your power better than you.
remember having a really difficult time with this boss in my first playthrough as well. And that was on normal, not hard. Oh well, it is what it is.
Miriam, what are you doing here? Stand up. Start with this.
Ooh, lots of stabs. Suddenly using every single Mithridate that I picked up over the entire playthrough. Granted, he is the first boss to use poison, so...
I know your power better than you.
I'm just trying to think of, like, ways that I might subvert his abilities. Honestly, my biggest problem with this is that, like, I can't see the hitboxes very well. I keep walking into things because I didn't realize that they're threats.
Stand down. Start with this. Stand down.
Well, as mentioned before, oh. As mentioned before, at least I don't lose resources. Like, every time I fight him, I have all my healing stuff back. Imagine if I had to farm it up again every single time. That would suck. You'd think that if you threw down, like, ice and fire in the same place, it would, like, cancel out.
Start with this. Has betrayed you.
I'm pretty sure that, like, the passive shards can give me elemental resistances. I don't think they become immunity at, like, high enough level, but, like, farming those stuff could also probably be really, good at extending the amount of time that I spend not dead. Same with, like, curse and poison resistance stuff. Like, if I could just not get poisoned, for example, or just not get cursed, that'd be nice. We take this. You won't let me stab you a bunch of times in a row, I'll do it. Rude. Okay, yeah, stabbing him like hundreds of times while he's trying to aura farm seems like a winning strategy.
Start with this. Dash.
I literally cannot see what's hurting me. Honestly? There we go.
This power you have is even greater than I imagined. I must get back the book.
That will never happen.
I have to make it happen. I have waited too long for this chance. Our last chance.
And he's dead. And he's gone. Well, that was rude. And he didn't even give me a shard. SMH. Not gonna lie, I was afraid that was gonna be harder, but then it turned out that he was weak to being stabbed many times. Oh hey, shard. Give. Deep Sinker causes you to sink in water, allowing you to explore beneath the surface. There we go. That's what I needed. Now with this I can properly explore underwater. I don't need Aquajet anymore. I can still use it, I just don't need it anymore. With higher ranks, I can recover HP underwater. That's cool. And more importantly, I can lock in my win. Awesome. Augment Con. Con. She's just like, you know what? No, I don't wanna deal with you. This place is giving, that room that I was just in kind of gave me the same vibes as like the first room in Zeeves, in Metroid 1. Couldn't tell you why, it just did. Speaking of things reminding me of things, whenever I see mahogany, I think of King Genmo's desk from Dragon Ball Z Bridge. It's made of mahogany, and he's quite proud of that. The nearest safe stuff is over there. Do you actually have that memorized, or did you go and look that up as soon as I said that? You have it memorized? Well done. I'm a danger. Or not? Okay. Oh, there's empty up there. I'm gonna put a thing there to indicate that I should come back here when I have more than 12 hit points. Realistically, I should just waystone out so I can not have to fight that boss again. Actually, I think I already saved, but whatever. Don't worry about me, what's your face? I'm only missing most of my blood. I don't need the rest. Okay, so with the ability to properly explore underwater, there's a bunch of stuff over here that I can get. As well as over here is probably where the actual, like, progression goes. I wonder if there's some way to refight bosses. Or if you, like, have to do it on New Game Plus, because I know that bosses drop shards. So it's like, if I wanted to, like, rank those shards up, what would it take? Speaking of shards, amphibian speed. That's a bit better. Wait, I saw a healing thing. Oh, it even gives me HP regen underwater, even without having to be ranked up first. That's cool. Where did I get this from? I think this was from the horse thing. I gotta get more of these. I'm pretty sure ranks cap out at 9. You would think that setting things on fire underwater wouldn't be particularly effective, but here we are. I get more fried fish. Awesome. Ayamar. A club once used to say to slay a wicked god, effective underwater. I wonder if, so the stats on it look really good. I wonder if it'll get weaker once I'm no longer underwater. Like, I'm not actually sure what effective underwater means exactly. Is it damage? Is it swing speed? Either way, it seems pretty strong. Swordfish. A giant winged sword named after a fish. That's funny. Plunderer's Ring. That sounds up my alley. More gold, more item drops. We take those. Especially after I've been talking so much about, like, oh, I should farm things. Now I just need like a shard binder's ring, is what I presume it would be called. That makes me, or makes enemies drop more shards.
That's Dominique. And Alfred?
Dominique and Alfred, you say?
This was your proposal, Exorcist? Explain yourself.
I should have been there. But you broke your word as well when you laid that trap for me.
I wasn't about to allow the book to fall into your hands.
Why would I want it?
Revenge, perhaps? For your parents.
Someone has been putting ideas in your head.
Miriam.
Huh?
Hi.
No, wait! I would have preferred you not see that.
So the trap Alfred laid was for you?
Yes, and that's why I sent Zangetsu to deal with it. He has the power to stop Alfred from teleporting. I thought he might be able to contain Alfred, while we dealt with our bigger problems here.
It makes sense. But what was all that about your parents? Revenge?
I don't want you to get the wrong idea, so I suppose I had better tell you. My parents were exorcists, like me, but during the demon outpouring 10 years ago, they were killed in battle. So I have my reasons for hating demons, and that accursed book.
I'm so sorry. You must hate us all for it.
I let go of the hatred years ago. All that matters now is that I gain control of the Liber Logaeth and prevent it from ever being used for evil again.
All right. I'll help you.
Thank you. I'll do all I can for you in return.
Wonderful. Definitely not sketchy at all. Okay, I believe you. You just had a flashback of this area, huh? Yeah. Flashbacks are no good. Hopefully you can overcome this trauma. Jeebel's efforts have supplied us with a large quantity of shards. Now that the children are well trained, we have begun shard binding experiments to great success. One girl in particular, Miriam, seems to have boundless potential, both in terms of how many shards she can wield and to what magnitude. If my calculations are correct, then we have finally amassed enough crystal to perform the Great Demon Summoning. It has been a long and arduous path, but we will soon reach the end. My old friend continues to oppose the ritual. However, to gain much, we must sacrifice much. It is the most basic principle of alchemy. That's an electric chair. I don't know if I want to sit on that one. Tail. Secret Sorcery Lab. Casual 100 to the dome. Sure, okay.
I finished. And
Can you...
sure.
I think we're gonna call it there for the night. Not gonna lie, did not think I would kill the boss that I killed. I thought I was gonna spend the rest of the night there. Yeah, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it each and every time. Next scheduled stream is going to be on Sunday. The game is going to be... I haven't decided yet. I think I cleared Harakami last time. As for the next time that I'm playing Bloodstained on stream, it'll be on Monday. I'll probably do some farming off stream for just like shards and upgrades and such. May or may not do that in the Discord. Incidentally, there should be a link to my Discord under the stream. Please feel free to join. Either way, have a wonderful night. I hope to see you again. Good night.